Welcome to B2B Commerce Corner. Commerce Corner is a sub-series of the E-commerce Edge podcast discussing all things B2B commerce through the lens of agencies, consultants, merchants, and more. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome Mr. Matt Johnson, and he is I'm gonna read this directly off of LinkedIn so I get it all out. It's a long title here: Practice Director, Wholesale Distribution, Pivotree. Welcome to the podcast, Matt.
What is up? It's great to be here. Excited. I've listened to episodes of you for a long time and excited to finally make my debut here. Thanks for having
Look, my pleasure, and I'm so glad that you did reach out to me. In fact, going back all the way to episode 535, a couple of months ago, we had Sam Russo from your team on the podcast. The title of that episode was Why Excellent Product Data is Mission Critical to Automotive E-commerce. She's obviously the practice director of PEM and product data for the automotive industry, and we had a fantastic conversation. I think it was one of our most popular episodes ever, which just goes to show how interested people are in understanding, okay, what do I got to do to get decent product data into my channel so that I can actually sell these products that I have available. Before we get into all that, and you've only been at Pivotree now for a few months, if I look back across your career, mostly sales, marketing, BDM roles, those type of growth-focused roles, not necessarily just purely manufacturing and distribution focused growth roles, but across the industry, owned a couple of marketing agencies in your time. So you're certainly not new to this wonderful rodeo of growth. But how did you come to be in this industry in the first place?
Yeah. It's a long story. I'll try to summarize quickly. I like to tell people I was born in the back of a warehouse. I literally grew up in the manufacturing distribution space. My grandfather founded a industrial distribution company out of his garage, actually. This was back in the 60s. Literally would throw industrial equipment, safety equipment in the back of his car, and he would drive around and call on customers. That actually turned into a sign business. So he realized when he was talking to safety distributors in Ontario, that's where he grew up, he realized, oh my gosh, like they all need safety signs. They need labels and tags for their end user customers. And so he actually went down the street to a sign shop and made the signs himself with the sign shop and took them to the customers and sold them. And he made a great little margin on those signs. And so he thought, wow, there might be something to this whole thing. So then he started making safety signs and facility identification equipment in his garage, bought some equipment, and started making the signs himself, selling them to distributors so they could resell. And that business grew pretty quickly. And he was like, the hell with this snowy weather. I'm moving to Florida. And so he came down to Florida. He brought my uncle and my father with him. And the rest is history. They grew it into a national manufacturing business, but it also was a distribution business as well, because we made all of the printed safety identification products, but then we also distributed a ton of other safety equipment for facility management and MRO. So yeah, in the height of the growth period, like when the company was really taking off, I was growing up, right? Like I was a teenager, and one of my first jobs was going out in the back of the factory and like finishing some signs on the assembly line. I've done a little bit of everything. I ended up going to school. I went to college specifically to do something in the golf industry because I was a high school golfer. I played college golf competitively, and I was passionate about golf. But then my golf career tanked. And after a few 10 cup moments of breaking clubs and rage quitting, I realized maybe golf's not my thing. But I was always creative. Like that was my other superpower, was like I could always put ideas together and I could always communicate those ideas pretty well. So I went into marketing, and shortly after getting a marketing degree, I went into the family business and started to identify some opportunities pretty early on, right? Like some going around participating in different areas of the manufacturing business, learning about distribution, learning about our sales channels, learning about the way that they do business. And probably 2 or 3 years into my career, we founded a catalog agency that did printed catalogs, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like where this whole like experience started was so back then I'm old, I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember the days when manufacturers and industrial did not have good quality product information.
Yep.
In fact, we set up a photography studio where manufacturers would send us their products, we would photograph them, we would write the copy for them, and then we built a master data management system for the industry. And this was specifically around the safety industrial supply industry. And so we partnered with a couple of different buying groups back in the day, and we created this PIM that was full of manufacturer catalog content. And the whole mission that we had was to create affordable master catalogs for distributors that they would then give to their customers. And that's how it was, right? Their catalog would sit on a shelf with a purchasing department at the companies that they served. And that was how business was done. And I have to admit, business is done much the same way today, unfortunately. Maybe less so on the paper. I think we've saved a few trees along the way the last 15, 20 years.
Maybe we've evolved to at least PDF catalogs in most instances, at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that catalog business was fundamental for me, right? It helped me understand the way that manufacturers sell to their distributors. It made me understand the way that a distributor sales rep goes in and positions themselves with their customers. And then probably around the same time, the family business was like diversifying and really growing fast. And in fact, we were fortunate enough to hire some really smart e-commerce people to start building our own B2B e-commerce solution for our distributor channels. And
Wow.
we were way ahead of the time. And that was one of the things that I learned growing up in this family business was innovation and customer experience is everything. And it's why we grew so well. It's why we were so loved by our distributor customers. And so we had one of the first B2B e-commerce portals for distributors to make their purchasing experience better. And anyway, I stole that guy. We had that guy come over and we built an agency and we built a platform that we could then resell to distributors. And
Wow.
the whole thing that made it work was the catalog that we built, right? So we had that catalog that we were using for print catalogs and we coupled that with the e-commerce platform and we were able to sell a package deal. And so he said, here's your e-commerce platform. Nobody's doing this. You can be one of the cutting edge distributors using these tools. And by the way, it's got all of your supplier content. So it took off pretty well and we grew that business. And that was the agency that I evolved, excuse me, into because I'm obsessed with marketing and I love like being creative with how I go to market, but also helping distributors. And I was excited back then because I wasn't just putting together a catalog or a website for them, but we grew it into a HubSpot Diamond agency. So we ended up onboarding a ton of distributors with HubSpot back in their peak growth stage. And we were able to like help them run automated e-commerce enabled marketing campaigns. That's really where I cut my teeth. And then let's see, probably 2019, 2020, COVID starting to happen to the world, right? And I was just like, man, it's time for a change. And I had an offer come across my desk to buy the agency and to buy the platform and the customers. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And so I took a different journey. And this is why I say when you grow up in this industry, like literally it's all I've ever known. And I was like, secretly in the back of your mind, you're thinking, there's got to be something else out there. There's something else I'm going to be passionate about. And I want to go explore that. So when I sold the business, I'm like, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that. I was like, I'm going to do something in the golf industry. And long story short, it didn't pan out the way I thought it was going to. And I said, I'm going to go back to what I know. And then I got engaged with a couple. I worked for a while as a consultant like yourself. And I got in working with a couple of really cool tech vendors that are in the distribution space. And it just reignited my passion for the industry. And so here we are, fast forward today. I'm in the perfect spot. I think I've never found a better role for me than what we do at Pivotree, because we touch all of the things that I care about, right? The data, the catalog, the e-commerce experience, right? And all of the pieces connected together that make it work. Love where I'm at, man. Sorry for that taking so long, but it's a podcast, right? Like we can.
Exactly. We got time, man. That's what this is all about. It's all about getting the long form version of somebody's story instead of just getting the cliff notes. But I love that. But I want to go back and I want to unpick something in particular that you mentioned right at the beginning of your journey with your grandfather's business, which is that, and what I'm seeing today bears out exactly what you said in the beginning, which is your grandfather wasn't just a distributor, he wasn't just a manufacturer, he was both. And a lot of people will ask me, "Oh, do you work primarily with manufacturers? Do you primarily work with distributors? Do you have a specialization in either one?" And it's my response usually is very rarely do I run across today, as of 2025, very rarely do I run across a business that is a pure play distributor or a pure play manufacturer. Like 90+% of the businesses that I work with, they're a hybrid. So
Mhm.
they're usually either heavier on the manufacturing side or heavier on the distribution side, but they all are trying to sell solutions into the market, not just SKUs. And they might, if they're a distribution heavy business, then maybe 70-80% of the products that they sell they're a distributor for, and only 10, 20, 30% of their products do they actually manufacture in-house or have them contract manufactured to their specifications. But they all are trying to differentiate by selling a full package of solutions. And even going beyond that, it's very rare to come across a pure manufacturer distributor. They also, probably greater than at least 80% of the time, they offer something like installation services or field services or warranty services or all these other design services, PMO services. They offer a whole range of in-house, or maybe it's even just purely creative design services to go with a product that they're selling. And very rarely do I see today that pure play manufacturers and distributors with no other strings to their bow can win in the market today. I'm seeing the ones that really are a cut above. They're the ones that are a one-stop shop in their industry, and they offer true end-to-end solutions for industry. And is that something your grandfather figured this out a long time ago, right? But not all manufacturers and distributors have yet. And so some of them are still trying to stick to what has always worked. And I'm also seeing not only that evolution of the industry, but I'm also seeing that as the second and third generation of a family takes over these businesses, because most of the manufacturers and distributors I work with, they're 50, 75, 100-year-old family owned businesses. And now it's the second or third generation that's taken over running the company. And there's finally, because those second and third generations, they're usually digital natives. And so they're looking around their business and they're going, why do we do why do we do things this way still? Like, it's great that, what got us to 0 to 1 is probably not going to get us to 1 to 10. You know what I mean? So I'd love your take on those two evolutions of our space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're like, they look around, they're like, are we seriously printing out purchase orders? What the hell are we doing over here? Are we? And then our customers are sending us checks, handwritten checks. Like what? It boggles the mind. But I thought that 20 years ago. I was like, surely there's a better way. I've got iTunes. So yeah, there's a cultural thing. There's a cultural component, leadership component that I'll touch on. But then there's also, I would say, a knowing your customer base component to this as well. Like you think about the diversification of what a manufacturer is today and what a distributor is today. What we're seeing is, like you just mentioned, there's this evolution, right? And they're smart because the ones that are winning, right? They look at their customer, they understand exactly who they're buying or they're selling into, and they're identifying the pain points that they're uniquely positioned to solve. And as a distributor, I'll start with the distributor first. The distributor today has so much more capabilities than they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, especially when it comes to developing private label items. And what I mean by that is not just the sourcing and say what you want to say, like ripping off designs and building them in China, whatever. It's a part that's an ethical thing we need to really seriously consider. But if it's done the right way and you're truly designing something innovative, and you are smart about how you're sourcing it. And the cool thing is, like, now you have so many resources in terms of branding that product line and creating compelling copy and stories around the products. It's a powerful differentiator. And I think aside from the product side, like distributors now are thinking of ways to streamline purchasing operations with their customers. And with some of the digital tools that are available out here today, like this is an exciting kind of blue ocean for distributors right now. And so, and I think about what you can do if you've got the right product data in place, you've got the right systems in place. Now with AI, we can then put like the power of AI quoting tools in our hands of our customers, help them solve their problems faster, help them get quotes faster, help get products out the door faster. So it's a whole deeper discussion, but AI, maybe we'll touch on this, but AI in a distributor's business can make significant gains, not just in their own operations, but in the terms of the way that they're serving their customers today and making their jobs easier. That's a huge value proposition. But then you also asked about the manufacturers. And I think when it comes to manufacturing, what we're seeing too is like the ability to create solutions that impact the end user and add additional value to the products that they're either sourcing or creating themselves. And that's exciting, right? And all of this is like the industry 4, 5, 6.0, like whatever you want to call it. What's happening is now we're able to see manufacturers selling things that are both like maybe at a direct end user level that is really going to be pinching the distribution channels, right? So we're seeing manufacturers go direct. We're seeing them own the relationships with the users of the products that they're manufacturing. And that is going to be a challenge for a lot of traditional distribution channels, right? They're going to have to figure out who owns the customer relationship here. Because I've got my manufacturer selling equipment to the end user, they're registering it with the manufacturer, they're collecting all the data on the customer and the use of the product. How easy is it for them to flip a switch and go start selling directly to the end users? I understand both sides. Like I understand both sides of that the potential opportunities there. But I think ultimately when you think about some of these innovations, these opportunities, it all comes down to leadership. It all comes down to the culture. So like when I think back to the family business and I think back to what made us successful, how do we go on a 30-year growth trajectory? It really always came down to asking ourselves, how do we make our customers go, wow? Like that at the end of the day, like that was the mission. Every time we did a strategic planning session, we got in the room and said, what is going to make somebody's jaw drop? Right. If it is a matter of having those relationships with the customer and going, oh, it's your daughter's birthday, and then a cake shows up in the mail or something crazy like that. Like those are the kind of things that we would do. And that's the kind of thing that a distributor can do that a manufacturer typically doesn't have the bandwidth or the capabilities to do.
Or they
And
don't even have the connection with the consumer of the good, so that there's no. They can maybe build that relationship with the distributor. Of course, they usually have more than one distributor, and so they can treat their distributors like the end consumer of the goods because effectively in the supply chain they are in that scenario, and so they can differentiate by creating that personal relationship with the distributor. But if they are a pure play manufacturer, they won't have direct routes to talk to the customer.
yeah, that's right. And as the manufacturing side of the business, I can't tell you how many baseball games, football games, concerts, $5,000 steak dinners that we would take our distributors to.
Of
And
course.
so the relationship aspect in this industry has always been the core, right? It is what makes it work, right? Like you work with a manufacturer because they love you and you love them. If you're an end user a buyer, you work with a distributor because you love them. They have created the right environment for you to succeed. They're reliable, they have good relationships, your people talk to them every day, and there's so much stickiness, right? As we think about what's happening at the end user level, like some of that stickiness is starting to go away. To your point, I think you said earlier, people are getting in the business now and they're going, what do you mean you buy from them just because we've always bought from them? Like,
Right.
is that the right thing to do?
Yeah.
And so there's exciting shifts happening in the market.
And what are you seeing in terms of the willingness of B2Bs to start being more open with the market around what they do and how they do it? Let me give you just one example. So, historically, it was very rare in the manufacturing or distribution space, even if they did e-commerce and even if they offered e-commerce in some sort of a way, which still, depending on the vertical and industry, 40 to 60% of manufacturers and distributors still don't do e-commerce at all, or what they consider e-commerce is EDI or punch out, and that's it. They don't do self-service e-commerce at all.
Mhm.
But even in that world, 90+% of those suppliers had a gated experience. You couldn't see the website, you couldn't see the products, you couldn't see product data, you couldn't do research, you couldn't see pricing, you couldn't see inventory, you couldn't see jack unless you logged in. This is historically how business was done in the B2B world because everybody had a closed kimono. They thought their secret sauce was their range. They thought their secret sauce was their price. They thought their secret sauce was their availability. They thought that what they thought was their secret sauce increasingly isn't. And so therefore, what they've done is they've cut off their nose to spite their face. And if you've got a closed catalog environment, not only does Google not know you exist, but neither does ChatGPT, any of the answer engines, or anybody else. And so now, because Forrester research showed that by the end of 2024, over 70% of B2B buyers in the United States are now digital natives. So they're millennials and Gen Z. So the reality is that when they are looking for a new supplier, they're not waiting for a distributor to come knocking on their door. They're not waiting for a manufacturer to come knocking on their door. They're not waiting to be taken out to a ball game. They are starting their search for a supplier of goods online. In most instances, they are not waiting for a flyer. They are not waiting for a mailing. They are not waiting for an email. They're self-serving their supplier search process. And what I'm seeing is a slowly increasing willingness to be more open with the market because, and what's interesting is, even at B2B conferences that I go to, I speak at, I MC now, historically, even going back 5 years ago, very difficult to get B2Bs to speak at these conferences. Very difficult because they're so private. They play their cards so closely to their chest. They're so worried about a competitor finding out what they're doing that they don't even want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about their successes, and they most assuredly don't want to talk about their failures and challenges. Whereas in the B2C and D2C world, which for the first half of my career I was so heavily focused on the B2C and D2C world, it's the exact opposite. Like, you want to get a retail brand to come and speak at a conference, they will trip all over themselves and even pay to be able to speak at conferences because they look at it as an earned free media opportunity for them. And they look at it as an opportunity to reach more customers and to get their brand spread far and wide into the market. And I'm slowly seeing that mentality, that closed, worried, scarcity mindset slowly start to change in the B2B world. And that goes all the way from having open catalog websites. Okay, maybe you don't show inventory, maybe you don't show pricing until somebody authenticates, but at least we can see the damn products. At least we can download spec sheets. At least we can do homework and research. At least we know you exist. And at least we can reach out to you and have a conversation about the products that you carry. And at least more and more of these businesses that are open to the idea of going and speaking at conferences and sharing from their wealth of experience. And I think, and I'd love your take on this, one of the reasons for this shift is because historically manufacturers and distributors oftentimes didn't have marketers in the business. They had sales
That's right.
and they had rev ops, and they maybe even had a head of sales or director of sales or a VP of sales. But oftentimes they had no marketing practice in the business. They had no marketing manager in the business. They had no VP of marketing in the business. Or if they did, they had one, they might be a 500-person distribution company and they have one person working in marketing. And they treated them historically as just a feeder for the sales team, of leads for the sales team. Now, as the maturity of these businesses grows, and as they actually understand, appreciate, and respect marketing as a true function in the business to create demand in the market for our products and services, now all of a sudden, those true dyed in the wool marketers like you grew up being and having that passion for marketing and having that passion for all things go to market, I feel like there's this subtle, slow, but growing shift. Oh my God, we actually have to build a brand. Oh my God, we actually have to go out there and we actually have to get in front of people. Oh my God, we actually have to go out there and we have to participate in the community. Oh my God, we need to go to conferences and trade shows and all these things. And that can't be led by sales, because sales is all about the transaction. And so I feel, I know that I just said a whole lot of things, but I just feel as the B2B industry slowly starts to mature, the mindset starts to mature alongside it.
Yeah. Yeah. You touched on so many good things there. I don't know even where to start. I will say this, the last thing you said is so important because it gives you an insight into, how a distributor thinks, right? Traditionally, marketing is a pure cost. It's a pure OpEx cost that, in most of the time was very difficult to quantify any sort of return on the investment. It was like distributors always thought of marketers as, oh, you're just going to make something look shiny and look good, right?
It's the coloring in department. I've heard
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard
It's
that
like,
saying.
and they're like, okay, yeah, and website, okay, make it look good, whatever, right? But here's the cool thing is that I think marketers today, for distributors and distributor leadership teams, should think of marketers as operational efficiency experts because they're touching the technology and the capabilities to automate so many of the customer touch points, communication, sales processes. And this is where, so I was just at Association of Electrical Distributors
Oh yeah,
marketing summit.
yeah.
And
That's the one in Washington. Is that the one in Washington?
it was in San Antonio this year.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's NAW has theirs in Washington. Sorry.
Yeah, this was just electrical distributors, but it gives you some good insight because these electrical distributors are some of the more digitally mature, at least in the industrial space.
Totally. Look at
And
Schneider Electric. Look at some of these other ones. They're massive.
yeah, and we work with Sonopar and Highland, and we're working with like the ones that are on the bleeding edge a lot of times. And when you sit and you talk to like your average mid-market distributor, they're talking about ways on how to use AI to create better social media content. And that's unfortunate
Yeah.
because, and this is what we talked about a lot, we did these roundtables, we get different marketers around the table, manufacturer and distributor. And what we talked about was the shift, right? That needs to happen in the marketing departments. We need to go and get embedded into our sales operations because there's these silos that happen. And it's, again, it's like marketing does the creative, shiny stuff, the social media stuff, the email stuff, but they're not helping sales solve the customer experience. And so what we see now is there is a huge opportunity with some of the tools that are available, the marketing automation tools, connected CRMs that are pumping data from the e-commerce site into the salespeople's hands. How do they utilize that? So freaking cool. AI being able to like create personal recommendations for a customer, whether they're logged in, or create a great quoting and lead generation experience on the website. Again, if it's not gated and a visitor can actually browse and put together a custom quote, these are things that drive real operational efficiencies. And now your marketing is not so much a cost center as it is like actually sweeping out excess costs from your business and realigning different team members like customer service reps. They don't need to be answering so many phone calls. Not if we have good product data on the website and we have an AI chat that's plugged into our back end, that's plugged into our ERP system, and we're able to bring in our CRM and we're able to bring in inventory levels, custom pricing based on quantity, based on geography. We're able to bring in a sales rep when we need to. And now we're sweeping all of this time out of the customer service department. And now our customer service reps can go out there and do what inside sales really should do, which is send their customers a birthday cake.
Yep.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Go and take it to the next level and let the technology empower the sales team so that they're not doing the order entry stuff. Like, even if you have a good e-commerce platform and you've got a good catalog, I've been in distributor businesses. I've walked the cubicles and I know that you have a lot of quiet people sitting around doing this.
Yep.
Click,
Orders
click.
into an ERP.
And not only that, but post sales, right? And you think about post sales, the questions that come in, the picking up the phone, the email back and forth. Oh, I don't know the answer. Let me check with our supplier. And then I
Send
have
me
to
a
go
copy
there.
of that invoice. What's the status of my credit account? What's the status of this return? What's the status of this quote request that I'm waiting on a response for? The amount of manual work that goes on in some of these distributors is wild. It is literally wild.
Yeah, it's obscene, really. And when we think about a distributor's business, it lives on razor margins, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
we're
Well,
talking,
some of the lowest margins of any tier in the
yeah,
industry.
we're sometimes 1-2% at the end of the
Yep.
day, right? And so it's funny, like we start looking at all these tools, and I see distributors and distributor thought leaders and software vendors, and they talk about growth and growth. As a distributor, I'm less concerned about growth. I'm more concerned about my bottom line.
Containing bloody cost. Yeah.
I'm more concerned about my head count. And so if I can go to a distributor and I can say, yes, growth, but how about profitable growth? Looking for ways to use better product data, better e-commerce customer experiences, better automation tools in place. And let's figure out where we can plug these into your existing operations and wipe out some of these manual processes. And shoot, if you're growing on a consistent year over year basis, you don't have to keep adding headcount. Or if you're not, you can allocate some of your staff. I'm not saying fire people, although a
Yep.
lot of people, when we talk about AI, we are talking about literally removing some of the, especially order entry and customer support.
Oh yeah.
These are really in danger, but a lot of those people are the best relational people. If we can just get them away from the mundane, the mindless work, and put them to work on our customers, I think that's a very powerful value proposition. And that's one of the things I still get excited about is I look at a distributor's business and I go, there's hardly any other industry in the economy that has this much potential. And I really mean that. Like, I just think this is the industrial supply chain.
Oh yeah.
We have the ability, it's one of the most powerful economies in the entire world that the world has ever known. And you just look at the numbers. And we are still doing things the way we did them in the 90s. And we have the ability to lower operational costs. This can trickle all the way down to the end user, like the people that are installing air conditioning units and buying units and having service teams. We can save the end consumer money if we just got smarter about how we operate our supply chain.
And I think you make a very good point about the role that marketing can play in some of these manufacturing and distribution companies. I'm working with a client right now, literally had 5 calls this week with them and some of their customers. They operate in the tint, PPF, and vehicle wrapping film space. That's the industry they operate in. Massive company, doing great things, growing. It's still privately owned, growing very fast. The owner realized, to his credit, the founder and the owner of the company, he realized to his credit, I've taken the business now to the level that I can take it to, and it's going great. We have great customer relationships. We know what we're doing. We manufacture and sell an amazing product. Our partners love us. They make money. We make money. Everybody's happy. But we hit a plateau. And so a year ago, he hired effectively a marketing manager, director of marketing, head of growth type person. And this person, so historically, they've only had one trade price for their products. That's it. Here's the trade price you pay. You have every trade customer has access to the same SKUs. They have access to the same service level inside our business. They all get an account manager. There was no differentiation in the business between levels or tiers of dealers of their products. And so what this marketing manager realized straight away is we can provide all this different level of support, but we can't give the same level of support at scale to every single one of our dealer customers. And so what we have to do is we have to recognize that at every stage of growth of our customer, they need different things. So the person that's a weekend warrior that's doing this work as a side hustle does not need the same level of support and the same type of support as a shop that's got 3 locations, 5 guys in vans, that they're $1 million a year revenue business. The weekend warrior doesn't want or need the same level of support because their commitment to the industry is very different. And so what we worked out together as they wanted to go through this retiering exercise, they wanted me to help them identify, okay, how many tiers should we really have realistically? What impact should that have not only on pricing, but also all the other services and support that we provide to our dealer partners? And what we did is we carved out not only 5 tiers, but 5 buckets and types of support we can provide within each of those tiers.
Love that.
And so it's not just about pricing. It is about what do those dealers need as they go through their own growth trajectory. So what do they need? Do they need education? Do they need training? Do they need certification? Do they need different levels and tiers of product itself that they get access to? Because as they move up the enterprise stream, the type of customer that they're selling to has higher expectations. If I'm doing work on a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari, the type of product that I'm going to use on that vehicle is very different to if I'm putting it on a Camry or a Sentra. And the cost associated with those products is very different. And the durability of those products and the expectation of the end customer is very different. And so we broke this down into 5 buckets. It was fulfillment, it was product, it was price, it was branding, co-branding. What level of go-to-market activity should we be doing together at different levels of their growth? It was so many different things. And without a marketer's mind in the business, they would never have seen this opportunity. They would never have even wanted to do customer interviews, talk to their dealers and say, okay, based on this new vision that we have, we think you'd fall into roughly this tier with us. Is this useful level of support at your tier of business? Would you find this useful? Oh my God. Like, I've been attending these interviews, and it is amazing to see the customer's face light up when they realize that they're going to be differentiated, that they're not just another dealer, that, okay, you recognize exactly where I'm at in my relationship with you, and you are providing me the appropriate help at the right time in the right scenarios, even down to the point of giving them free credits for on-site training where the supplier will fly out to their location and give on-site training, and they're giving them training credits depending on the tier of customer they are. Now, that to me is where the modern marketer within the manufacturing and distribution space, that is bringing real tangible value, because they have forecast out if they can take 10% of each of those customers that fall into those tiers and help get them to the next tier every year, even only 10%. What that's going to do to their bottom line is wild. It is wild. Like, the growth lever associated, yes, it's going to take some effort. Yes, it's going to take some extra internal effort to add these services and to add these tiers to their website and to all their back office operations and everything else. But the benefits are so tangible to their customers that it will help them grow. And by definition, if their customers grow, they grow. And so I think you've just hit the nail on the head here, which is that I think the manufacturers and distributors that don't see marketing, if they keep them in the box of the coloring in department, then they won't see value out of that function. But if they let them go ham on the entire business and look at the entire business and say, how can we serve our customers and go out and create demand with new customers and operationally just rip the guts out of the business and look at all ways we can pull those levers, then all of a sudden, instead of it being a cost center, now this is a growth center in the business. That to me is super exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really is. And we're seeing this with some more digitally mature, larger enterprise distributors. We are seeing this, which is encouraging. And it's how we know what the bar is, right? Like, we know the bar because we work with the bar and we know what they do. It's one of the greatest value propositions, a plug Pivotree a little bit. It's why we are the best, because with the best, we know what they're doing, we know what works. And one of the cool things that you described is basically you described the chief digital officer. The chief digital officer's role, and what makes them powerful is that they have the creative mind to look above the business. They don't see the silos; they look above it. They're at a 10,000-foot view. They see the operations. They connect the dots between the operations in the business and the technology that is available or that we currently have. They find the gaps that are in that, and then they work on implementing sometimes brand new, innovative solutions to solving this problem of the customer experience and how the cost to serve. When you think about what, and we're on the e-commerce edge podcast. So when you think about e-commerce, like what you just talked about is critical. And I can't tell you how many distributors I've seen who have failed and completely dropped the ball in the concept of segmenting customers and building an e-commerce experience for different types of customers, right? So like classic example is you're a distributor. You may sell to an MRO company, an OEM company, and a contracting company. Those are three completely different types of businesses, right? And the buyers who are actually making transactions with you are completely different. And so you need to think about what it means to be in the boots of a contractor on a work site. They're not sitting at a cubicle, like taking a list that they need to create a requisition order for. Like they are searching for stuff on the fly. And so if you sell to contractors of any kind in whatever vertical, right? HVAC, industrial, construction, you need to be thinking about how do I empower a mobile voice search experience? Like this is because remember the guys that are going to be ordering as a contractor they're going to be 20-year-olds. Do you think that they type stuff in? Right? Do you think that they know how to find a taxonomy tree on the website? And when they go to the taxonomy tree, the whole thing freaking goes off the screen because it's not mobile optimized. You know what I mean? You have to think about the experience. Sometimes you may need an app. You may need an app for your contractor customers, whereas you need to be able to create this fluffy like relational experience for maybe your OEM customers who are buying with you all the time. Think about one of the things I was talking with somebody recently was like a lot of more companies today, or big corporate companies, they used to be locked down in their IT around like applications and things that they could use, like Microsoft only and blah, blah, blah. But now we're seeing a lot more like flexibility there. We're seeing teams use Slack all over the place, Zoom
WhatsApp,
chat, WhatsApp.
SMS, email still
Bring your
big in the B2B world.
customers, yeah, bring your customers into create customer channels and use that as a relational tool. Send your customer a gift. That is like really connecting with them on a digital level. And there's 100 ideas like that you could be doing, right? But you have to have that chief digital officer mindset where you're coming into the business. And this is the time we're heading into the strategic planning season, right? And so like I would encourage if you're a distributor or manufacturer listening to this and you're thinking like heading into some serious conversations about what we're going to do in the next year to come, how are we going to use our budget, what are some of the most important things we need to tackle, bring somebody who's creative into that conversation, who can sit outside of the day-to-day tangle of business operations and are not siloed and like politically leaning towards their department, right? That's another thing. Like if you have a consultant that you trust or some outside source, let them come in, open up your business to them and show them. And like you might get some incredible opportunities that come out of this. And when I talk to some distributors, I'm talking about like reducing 30% of your cost to serve, right? And if you're a $1 billion company, that's significant. And it's game changing a lot of times. So those are the kind of things I think about. And to your point, it's who knows how to implement this stuff, right? And who can connect the dots with the way that we're doing business now. These people are in a high demand, and find somebody like that.
It's an exciting time to be in the industry. Just going back to what you were talking about in terms of leveraging these sort of what we would have historically considered comms channels in the B2B world and leveraging them as headless commerce channels instead.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing is an increasing. So there's two ways we can approach this in the B2B world, and I'd love to get your take on this. We can either try to create an adoption plan of our digital technology where we can do training, we can do onboarding, we can do support, we can do all these things to get them to use our portalized experience or get onto EDI or get onto Punch Out or whatever it is, right? Or we can implement technology, and it's usually some combination of both, or we can implement technology that allows us to leverage our digital commerce capabilities without requiring the customer to change their behavior. And I'll just give you an example. So there's a platform out there, you may have heard of it. It's called Motivate. It can sit between the customer and the digital channel. So what that does is it allows these traditional channels like email, WhatsApp, Slack, Teams, SMS, etc., and it allows people to attach PDFs of a PO or a CSV of a PO to those channels. And it allows those to be automatically mapped and integrated with the commerce system without requiring a human being on the other end to make that happen. And we're now starting to see those channels being turned into full digital services channels themselves. So I can check my pricing, I can check availability, I can get a quote, I can lodge an RMA, I can do all these things through these what we have traditionally considered pure communication channels with, say, an account manager. Now we can have automated multimodal AI systems, and it's the multimodal AI part that has made this possible and really has only made this possible in the last 12, 18 months. Yes, we have had OCR systems in the past, but they weren't multimodal capable to where they could ingest a CSV, they could ingest a PDF, they could ingest on a building site if somebody scrawled a message or a request for information or an order on a roofing tile, and then they take a photo of it and they send it through. Now with multimodal AI, we can interpret this, we can convert it into a standardized data model, and we can get it into our commerce system as if the customer logged into our portal and placed the order through our portal. And this, to me, the less we require our customers to change their behavior, but yet we as the supplier get the benefits of the technology that we've implemented, regardless of whether they change their behavior or not. This, to me, is a massive win for our industry.
It is. And the potential is really endless, right? It's the only limitation is your imagination, right? When it comes to this sort of stuff, there is a problem, and there's a big problem, big hairy problem. And so I was at the AI for Distributors conference earlier this year, and
Yes.
there was
I think you probably saw Jason Hine, one of my friends from the B2B EA. There was a number of B2B EA guys that were there.
Oh yeah, and we talked, and there's so many cool discussions going on, so many cool vendors that were there doing cutting it. Motivate was there, and you look at some of the things that we're seeing in the industry, and it's so cool. But there's this whole like unspoken problem that nobody wants to really address, which is the cleaning of massive amounts of product data and the customer data to create this visionary experience using AI agents and some of these tools. It works, but when I look at demos, the demos are pulling from beautiful data.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, you know how we talked about earlier, you mentioned earlier, some distributors gate their e-commerce site. And here's the reason why. Because that e-commerce site is gated, that's only a fraction of what they actually source. They don't have actual good market ready, e-commerce channel ready content. And so the majority, I've seen distributors that have 6 million SKUs in their ERP, but they go to market with 100,000. Like, it's insane. And the reason why, it's intimidating, it's scary. I can't just drop 1 million SKUs on a website and have everything be inconsistent, have nothing where it needs to be, have product descriptions that are, some of them are all caps, some of them are missing images, descriptions that have all of the attributes in the description field instead of broken out into attribution.
No structured product data. It's all unstructured.
It's a total mess. That's what lives in ERPs. That's
Yes.
what distributors have access to. Uh, and we're getting better at this, but we're still a long way away. And the reason why is because distributors historically have wanted the manufacturers to solve this problem for them.
Yes. And they won't
And,
in many cases.
and they
They won't
won't.
or they can't.
The distributors have to own it. They have to
Yep.
own this because it literally has the ability to change the game for your customer experience. It has the ability to drive online sales, reduce your operational costs, and make you more sticky with your existing customers. Because these tools that you talked about, they're all at our fingertips.
Yeah.
But how will we make them work, right? Because if, let's just say, I drop dirty data or I connect my AI agent to my ERP data, which I know is crap. I was going to say
Crap.
something else.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
crap. And we're now hallucinating results
Oh
to
yeah.
the customer and creating actually like a backfiring scenario. Like we wanted to create a cool customer experience. Now we just tripped over ourselves and created a bad customer experience because the purchaser was like, chat, yes, okay. And asking these questions about the product and the agent sourcing it using the data, and they got these answers and it looks so confident and real. And then at the
Yep.
end of the day, they're like, oops, okay, this one's not an inventory, but I can order it. I can put it on back order or whatever.
Or worse yet, an item turns up at a building site and it's not the specs that the buyer thought it was, and now I can't actually use it. Or worse yet, I actually install it thinking it's of a certain specification, a load bearing capacity, whatever it is. And then now I've got liability on my backside when it fails or it causes a fire or it falls out of the ceiling or something like that. Now, all of a sudden, me as the builder, I'm responsible. The supplier isn't. Now everybody's in a world of hurt.
Thank you for mentioning that. I never even dug that deep in the, because it's, if you actually let it get to that point, you're a complete idiot. You're
Yeah.
like, but
Yeah.
theoretically, yes, that could happen, and that's horrifying. So it has to start with cleansing your product data that you're sourcing, normalizing it, putting it into an order that's professional. Remember, I started in the print catalog business. Do you think we would ever print something that, like, one product description was all capitals and one product description uses GREY to say gray and the other one is GRAY? Like, we would never
Yeah.
let that go to print. And yet distributors put that on their website, or worse, they don't. And then, like, to your point, then search agents can't get to it, they can't find it. So you're immediately dropped out of the equation when they're sourcing a new supplier. And then, like we said, like, none of the tools really work so good if, that data is not there. And customer data too. We don't even have time to get into that. That's like a whole nother thing. Like,
Oh yeah.
customer data is a mess. Like Salesforce, and I've seen some horror films, like looking through a Salesforce video, and I was
Implementation.
like, wow, like, you guys, you have 500,000 records, you have 3,000 current customers or something. That's,
Yeah.
it's in, like, the cleansing that has to happen there, and then segmentation, and then mapping that to the products. Oh, there's a lot of work, and it's all data work. Unfortunately, it's the most unsexy part of a business, but we've got to make it a priority, and we got to do it the right way.
Man, I could not agree more. It's why when I go in consulting with a manufacturer distributor for the first time as part of discovery, one of the first things I get them to do is to do an extract of 20 products and all of the associated product data, an extract of 20 customers with all of their associated product data, show it to me, and usually within about 10 or 15 minutes of reviewing that, I can tell them where the vast majority of their problems exist in their business today.
Yep. Yep.
Listen, this has been a fascinating conversation. I've truly enjoyed it. You clearly know your stuff. You've been in this game for your entire life. Super fascinating. I learned a lot. I'm sure my audience will too. If people want to get a hold of you and talk all things manufacturing, distribution, data, digital, customer experience, everything else, I will drop a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes and, of course, a link to the Pivotree website in the show notes. But other than that, how do you like people to get a hold of you?
That's perfect. Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn, follow me. I'm always posting content of some sort. Hopefully, not just talking about the challenges, but hopefully sharing some creative solutions. So yeah, follow me on LinkedIn, reach out directly. Email is great, matt.johnson@pivotree.com. Yeah, give me a shout. Love to sit in with you and help you solve some problems.
I love it. Absolutely incredible. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, now's where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It can be personal or professional. So, Mr. Matt Johnson, Practice Director, Wholesale Distribution at Pivotree, what is your question for me today?
Okay, I'm going to ask this question on behalf of my wife, who is from New Mexico, and
Love
I
it.
know you're down in that region. Okay, red or green chili?
I'm a red chili guy. Yeah. Yeah. With the exception of jalapenos. Yeah, I like chipotles, so I like yeah. So normally I'm a red chili guy with the exception of jalapenos, which they got to be green.
That's awesome.
I don't wait for them to ripen into red. I consume them and I make my own salsa and everything else as well, and I like my jalapenos green.
My wife has tried many times to grow hatch chilies here in Florida. It doesn't work out so well with the humidity, but she would agree with you. Red is the right
Where
choice.
it's at.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
you thought I
love
was
it.
going to
I
ask
love
you a
it.
question about e-commerce. No way.
No,
It's
I
all about
love the
chili.
personal questions. Absolutely love it. And I tell you, we're spoiled for choice down here in Puebla City, Mexico. It is one of the culinary hearts of Mexico. And in fact, mole, which a lot of people don't know that mole, the chocolate salsa based sauce, they don't realize that actually originates in Puebla. So it's normally the full name is mole poblano because it's from Puebla, and that has spread right across not only all of Mexico but also heavily across the U.S. and other parts of Latin America. But it actually originates here in Puebla, and so
Well,
there's another dish called chiles en nogadas, and that is also a native dish to Puebla. So we're spoiled for choice here in Puebla for really high quality Mexican food. So yeah, we feel very lucky to live here.
I was going to come over there just to get out of the humidity, but now I've got another reason. And
First round of margaritas are on me, man. We've got the spare bedroom in the house here. We've got a terrace, three-story house. We've got a terrace overlooking the city of Puebla. We got the barbecue sitting out on the terrace. So we'll have some carne asada, and we'll have some
this sounds
ice cold
great. It
Coronas
sounds
and
great, Jason.
margaritas.
I'm ready for my vacation right now. You got me thinking.
I
Be
love it when
awesome.
the dead of winter. Not that you guys get a bad winter, but when you get in the dead of winter, come on down and say good day.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I can't wait to speak to you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Take care. Great to be here.
Are you a B2B or D2C e-commerce merchant? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to learn how we can help you scale your business.